Good evening. It is the first day of the first month of the year 2021. Happy New Year. Welcome to the broadcast on the news tonight. Tonight, clinical officers end their nationwide strike after signing an agreement with the government.
The strike for the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers members across the country shall actually be called off.
But nurses insist their strike is still on.
Through dialogue, that issues can be resolved. But chest thumping and grandstanding, giving directives without rationale cannot help any issue.
Also tonight, schools will reopen on Monday, but the government insists it will be hard to achieve the 1 meter social distance rule.
I expect, first of all the children to be masked.
Plus, Kenyans usher in 2021 differently but full of hopes that the year will be better than 2020. Faith Cheptile is our sign language interpreter. TV47 News Tonight with me, Abu Bakar Abdullahi, begins right now. Good evening and welcome to the broadcast. Now, clinical officers have agreed to end their nationwide strike after signing an agreement with the government. The strike has paralyzed services in public hospitals across the country. The agreement was signed between their union officials and the Ministry of Health. Mwangi Maina begins our broadcast tonight.
A meeting held at Afya House early Friday morning between Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe and officials from Kenya Union of Clinical Officers unclogged part of the stalemate that has rocked the health sector. Clinical officers have been on a go-slow for the last 26 days.
We are glad because I think there is headway and we have agreed on the matters that have been in dispute and that has taken us on strike for the past 26 days today.
In the return to work formula signed outside the Ministry of Health buildings, parties that had been at loggerheads agreed on 17 issues touching on the welfare of clinical officers working in public hospitals this period of COVID-19. Among issues agreed upon is a group insurance cover, provision of PPEs and renewal of contracts, as well as enjoyment of benefits for officers hired on contractual basis.
We have provided on how we will ensure that they get supported in terms of the PPEs, frequently checking on whether they are available and whether they are adequate. That is quite well covered. And we have also provided on how our members will be able to get medical cover and also group life insurance.
After the signing of the return to work formula, the strike was called off immediately, with clinical officers directed to report back to work within 24 hours.
We have therefore agreed that if all these issues have been agreed and as we have signed, the strike for the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers members across the country shall actually be called off immediately, and we therefore ask our members to resume duty within the next 24 hours.
On their part, nurses are adamant that they will not resume duties until all their issues have been addressed. However, Kenya National Union of Nurses KNUN Secretary General Seth Panyako is optimistic that the gridlock will be unlocked after a meeting with the ministry Monday next week.
It's only through dialogue that issues can be resolved. But chest thumping and grandstanding, giving directives without rationale cannot help any issue. We are all Kenyans. We are all leaders in our own capacities. I want to make it very clear that we will not sign a return to work agreement just because it looks like that one for the doctors, so that it looks the one for the clinical officers. Our return to work agreement must address pertinent issues affecting my members.
The government retaliated efforts to ensure all healthcare workers are working in conducive environment.
For avoidance of doubt, may I state that the government is committed to ensuring continuity of services to our people without disruption, and we will do everything possible to get all our striking workers back to work.
health workers have been up in arms, accusing the government of neglecting them in the face of COVID-19 pandemic. As the clinical officers signed the return to work formula, nurses are still proceeding with their strike. Health CS Mutahi Kagwe asking them to hasten the process of negotiations, call off the strike and go back to work, saying that every health worker is needed to ensure Kenyans get health services without being troubled. Mwangi Maina, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, the government is set to purchase the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe says that the vaccine is expected in the country on the second week of February. Frontline healthcare workers and those at risk of infection will be the first to receive the vaccine.
Ordered vaccines, and we have made it clear also, we have got the protocol that we are going to use to ensure that we start with the healthcare workers, because those are the first line. As soon as the first line workers, and the first line include even people like the police, the healthcare workers, the teachers who are in schools, students and so on. So we have got a system which we have issued that to indicate who will be first to be offered the vaccines. And it is important for us to use that word, the operative term being offered. There is no mandatory vaccination of anybody. It is people who will wish to do so.
Moving on, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha says that the country is not in a position to achieve social distancing in schools, and so the safety of learners will be pegged on how well they wear their face masks and maintain hygiene. Even so, some leaders claim that the need of learners with special need has not been put into consideration. Sharon Baranga reports.
It is just 2 days before learners report back to school for the second term. Education Cabinet Secretary has been visiting a number of schools in different counties to ensure preparations to receive learners are thoroughly done.
We opened for 3 million, and nobody is seeing that we opened for 3 million. They are seeing a few handfuls that had problems. Now, anyway, that is being Kenyan for you, isn't it?
Social distancing in schools remains a challenge. The government admits schools will have to be innovative in finding temporary solutions.
Having looked at the data we have on the ground, Kenya has a total of 16 million children in pre-primary, primary, secondary, and technical and tertiary institutions. And we declared as a government that social distance shall remain a challenge. I expect my teachers to be innovative according to the situation. There are many schools in the arid and semi-arid areas that shall achieve it because they don't have the numbers. Where the numbers are large, I expect, first of all the children to be masked. By being masked, I mean you cover your nose and mouth. If that is done, social distancing may not have as bad an impact as we expect. And that is why the government of the Republic of Kenya, through the ministries of Education, Interior and Health, have now gotten a higher figure of masks. We are now talking about 7 million masks, which we shall give judiciously to the children that need them.
Another emerging debate is the needs of learners with special needs, which some leaders believe they have not been put into consideration.
But you can imagine a child with disability on a wheelchair, and a person who will be pushing that child. What is the social distance in that particular scenario? You can imagine a child who is blind, yes, and is required to keep social distance while they may not be able to see even where they are traveling to. The child who is blind is required to wash hands regularly. They may not be able to know the points in which we wash our hands. So we need to prepare not only for the able-bodied, but also for special schools and for peoples with disability.
Distribution of desks to schools in the country under the economic stimulus package continues. The project is meant to ensure social distancing is achieved as well as revive the Juakali sector that was hit by the global pandemic. Sharon Baranga, TV47.
Elsewhere, parents and residents of Miohoko in Kiambu County are yet to come to terms with the saddening death of 5 children aged between 3 and 10 years. The shocking death that occurred last evening met the children playing around the pit before dropping in and dying. Nanok Lauren reports.
This is the 18-year-old pit latrine that snatched the innocent lives of 5 children last evening, 3 girls and 2 boys. The 5 were playing around the pit while hanging on tree branches, and before they knew it, they plunged into the 20 feet deep pit latrine.
Kuna watoto walikuwa wanacheza, walikuwa 7. Watoto wawili wakatoka wakaenda. Hao wengine walikuwa na simu na mti. Sasa mti ndio ilikatika. Sasa vyenye ilikatika, badala ya wastada hapo wakaenda chini.
Kuna uchungu sana. Kabisa tuko na uchungu.
Their scarred parents were hopeful that they will usher in the new year with their families being complete, but following yesterday's events, the 5 children did not live to set their eyes on the new year, and now they have lost hope of having a good year ahead.
Kwa saa hii sina furaha, hata watu wakisherehekea kuona mwaka mpya, mimi niko na huzuni.
Nahisi vibaya sana, sana. Tusikuwa natarajia hiyo. Walikuwa wananiuliza, mama, tunarukisha mwaka aje? Inarukaga aje? Sasa I miss her so much. Hata sijafurahia hata kidogo, hata sijaelewa ni new year.
These parents already began heavy preparations to send their children back to school on Monday next week. However, the loss of their children has forced them to bring all the preparations to a halt.
Nguo zilikuwa sawa, unajua hazikuwa zinawatosha, tukanunua zingine, viatu, kila kitu. Nikushukwa tu hakuwa ameshukwa na alikuwa ashukwe leo.
Alikuwa anaenda class 1 na sasa sina wakupeleka next year class 1, ndio huyo sasa.
After the bodies of the young ones were retrieved, they were later taken to Kenyatta University Mortuary and Funeral Home, with their parents and relatives recording a statement at Ruiru Police Station in Kiambu County. Grief engulfing the parents and relatives to the 5 children who met their death while playing around a 20 feet deep pit latrine cannot be explained, with some already terming the new year as a fail. Nanok Lauren, TV47, Ruiru, Kiambu County.
A sad turn of event there. May their souls rest in eternal peace. Elsewhere, majority of Kenyans ushered in the new year in different styles, even as restrictions were being placed around the world as many countries struggle to curb new spike in COVID-19 cases. Our reporter Andrin Kilemi reports on how the celebrations were held in various parts of the country.
This New Year's Eve was celebrated like no other, with pandemic restrictions limiting crowds and many people bidding farewell to a year they'd prefer to forget. Fireworks lit the sky at various beach hotels and entertainment joints at the coastal tourist resort city, where hundreds had gathered for a vigil to usher in the new year 2021. For a moment, all the troubles and burdens of 2020 seemed to have been forgotten. Travelers Beach Resort General Manager Hilary Ciel said they are hoping the new comprehensive stimulus package, which was unveiled by President Uhuru Kenyatta to rescue the country's ailing tourism sector, will help jumpstart the tourism sector.
2020 has been a very tough year for all of us, and especially the hospitality industry. Some hotels have been closed for so long. Some just opened, so we are on our recovery stage. It was very tough indeed, and we achieved almost zero from our budgets. But we thank God, this festivity has come with a lot of hope. We've been able at least to make a sale and to give hope to the world and to our staff members.
In Baringo County, locals braved heavy rains to usher in New Year with entertainment from traditional dancers and live bands. In Kisumu County, Faithfuls ushered 2021 in churches with songs of praise and thanksgiving. The situation was not any different in Machakos, where just a handful of faithfuls showed up. In Murang'a County, Kigumo constituency, residents celebrated New Year by celebrating the men and women in uniform for restoring peace, as the area was known for insecurity and crime.
Na wakati tulipata nyumba moja ambayo watoto walikuwa wameachwa na mama yao nyumbani. Kwa hivyo tukaenda kwa OCS wao na wametushikilia sana. Walitupa vifaa tulivyohitaji kama kitanda, vyakula, na wakati wote tulifika hiyo nyumbani walikuwa nasi na hawakutuacha.
In Nairobi County, things were a bit different, as most residents preferred to stay indoors to usher in 2021 following the 10 p.m. curfew. Others who were caught outside past curfew hours were forced to find faster and easier means of transport, even as others were seen dodging from police. Most Nairobi residents, however, attended church service Friday morning to usher the new year.
Kwa maneno ya uhakika, watu wakitaka kuwa salama, wamfanye Mungu kuwa kimbilio lao. Maana unapomtumaini Mungu na kukimbilia kwa Mungu, unapata msaada wa kweli.
This year's New Year's Eve will with no doubt go down in history as one that was ushered with little celebrations across the globe. Andrin Kilemi, TV47.
Moving on, residents of Likoni have officially started using the Likoni floating bridge today after it was launched by President Uhuru Kenyatta last month. The bridge was built by the national government to reduce congestion at the ferry terminal. Fatma Ngwena reports from Mombasa.
The Likoni floating bridge, which was built from mid-July and launched by President Uhuru Kenyatta in December, has been used officially today by the residents of Likoni, who are the majority of people using the Likoni ferry terminal. The 800-meter bridge will be taking up pedestrians crossing at the terminal at any time, leaving the ferries to serve vehicular cargo between Mombasa and the South Coast to avoid congestion and other inconveniences to pedestrians.
Na nafurahi sana kwa sababu kwa upande wa ferry kule kulikuwa na msukumano ambapo watu walikuwa wakiumia sana. Na huku naona hakuna magari inapita, ni wanadamu peke yake.
President Uhuru Kenyatta and Transport CS James Macharia started the project, the first of its kind in the region, with the aim of reducing the spread of COVID-19 at the coastal region, but the residents say it will also boost the economy.
Hivyo tunashukuru kupata hili daraja. Hili daraja litapanua uchumi kwa sababu mtu akitoka kwa nyumbani kama anaenda kazini atafika wakati unaofaa. Wenye bidhaa ambao watoka masokoni ama kwenye maduka pia watapeleka bidhaa zao kwa wakati.
The residents have called upon the government and stakeholders to come through and help get a solution to the scorching sun and heavy rains that they will have to deal with while crossing.
Serikali itusaidie kutuwekea shade ya kuzuia jua na mvua, sababu hii daraja imetengezwa vizuri sana, lakini shade ya kuzuia mvua.
Security is beefed up in the area with the Kenya Red Cross emergency team put in place to be on the lookout.
Wanaenda sokoni Kongoea. Nashukuru kwa hili daraja kwa sababu kuna wakati tukitoka sokoni huwa tunachelewa pale feri. Maferi anaweza kuvuka mawili na unabaki umesimama hapo na mizigo.
As the new year begins, a new ray of hope is seen for most residents of Likoni who are officially using the Likoni floating bridge that is accessible at any time compared to ferries which were mostly congested. Fatma Ngwena, TV47, Mombasa County.
Thank you, Fatma Ngwena, our reporter from the coastal capital of Mombasa, for that report. You're watching TV47 News Tonight with me, Abu Bakr Abdullahi. Time for us to take a short break. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more news after this break.
So we have a problem in the country. Our choices must be based on the policies. Sera ambazo mtu anataka kuweka mbele ni nini?
Kuongezwa kwa nyadhifa kutasuluhisha matatizo ambayo yanalikumba taifa kwa sasa?
BBI hawezi kuwa alfa na omega. Tukilinda pesa zetu vizuri, tuzibe mambo ya ufisadi na nini, watu na uchumi waanze kufufuka na watu waanze kuajiriwa na kadhalika, mambo ya kuwa na leader of opposition ama kuwa na prime minister watu hatazungumzia sana. So we have a problem in the country. Our choices must be based on the policies. Sera ambazo mtu anataka kuweka mbele ni nini?
Kuongezwa kwa nyadhifa kutasuluhisha matatizo ambayo yanalikumba taifa kwa sasa?
BBI hawezi kuwa alfa na omega. Tukilinda pesa zetu vizuri, tuzibe mambo ya ufisadi na nini, watu na uchumi waanze kufufuka na watu waanze kuajiriwa na kadhalika, mambo ya kuwa na leader of opposition ama kuwa na prime minister watu hatazungumzia sana. So we have a problem in the country. Our choices must be based on the policies. Sera ambazo mtu anataka kuweka mbele ni nini?
Kuongezwa kwa nyadhifa kutasuluhisha matatizo ambayo yanalikumba taifa kwa sasa?
BBI hawezi kuwa alfa na omega. Tukilinda pesa zetu vizuri, tuzibe mambo ya ufisadi na nini, watu na uchumi waanze kufufuka na watu waanze kuajiriwa na kadhalika, mambo ya kuwa na leader of opposition ama kuwa na prime minister watu hatazungumzia sana. So we have a problem in the country. Our choices must be based on the policies. Sera ambazo mtu anataka kuweka mbele ni nini?
Kuongezwa kwa nyadhifa kutasuluhisha matatizo ambayo yanalikumba taifa kwa sasa?
BBI hawezi kuwa alfa na omega. Tukilinda pesa zetu vizuri, tuzibe mambo ya ufisadi na nini, watu na uchumi waanze kufufuka na watu waanze kuajiriwa na kadhalika, mambo ya kuwa na leader of opposition ama kuwa na prime minister watu hatazungumzia sana. So we have a problem in the country. Our choices must be based on the policies. Sera ambazo mtu anataka kuweka mbele ni nini?
Kuongezwa kwa nyadhifa kutasuluhisha matatizo ambayo yanalikumba taifa kwa sasa?
BBI hawezi kuwa alfa na omega. Tukilinda pesa zetu vizuri, tuzibe mambo ya ufisadi na nini, watu na uchumi waanze kufufuka na watu waanze kuajiriwa na kadhalika, mambo ya kuwa na leader of opposition ama kuwa na prime minister watu hatazungumzia sana. So we have a problem in the country. Our choices must be based on the policies. Sera ambazo mtu anataka kuweka mbele ni nini?
Kuongezwa kwa nyadhifa kutasuluhisha matatizo ambayo yanalikumba taifa kwa sasa?
BBI hawezi kuwa alfa na omega. Tukilinda pesa zetu vizuri, tuzibe mambo ya ufisadi na nini, watu na uchumi waanze kufufuka na watu waanze kuajiriwa na kadhalika, mambo ya.
This is TV47. Happy holidays.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Let's get to more news now. And an anti-stock theft police officer has been shot dead by bandits in Baringo. The officer was among others who were fetching firewood near their camp when they were ambushed by at least 15 bandits.
At least 15 bandits armed with AK-47 attacked a group of police officers who were fetching firewood.
Na baada ya kutafuta kuni kitu kama saa 3 ama saa 2:30 ameanza kuvamiwa na ameuliwa askari moja na ngine 2 amepata jeraha.
The officer was shot at the back through the stomach as he tried to flee from the ambush. In the scuffle, 2 other officers escaped by a whisker with gunshot wounds as they tried to save their lives.
Na inaongea kwa uchungu sana. Wamama umeama
wasi wamehama, hakuna mtu. Ukipata area watu walikuwa zaidi ya 1,000. Sasa ni watu kama 100 wamebaki kwa area hii. Nyinyi mnasherehekea nini? Christmas. Mwingine anasherehekea kuuliwa. Sasa tuko Kenya gani?
Nataka niambie Matiang'i, ndugu yangu, msipochukua hatua kwa askari ambaye aliuliwa hapa Chemoe, chukueni pepeni mkono juu. Sema kama serikali tumeshindwa na wakora katika Kenya.
The slain officer is among those who had survived floods in May, where 7 police officers were swept away. Tension now remains high in the area as shops have remained deserted, with some of the locals starting to flee the area for a possible attack. This is despite the camp, which was established in 2012, aimed at bringing a solution to insecurity in Baringo North.
Now, for nearly 70 years, Kenya has not had the invasion of locusts as witnessed from late last year. Hungry insects that have since ravaged thousands of hectares of crops that sustain both human beings and their livestock. And as Nanok Lauren recalls the deadly invasion, the country is presently going through a second wave of the desert locust invasion.
The worst outbreak of desert locusts in Kenya in 70 years has seen swarms of locusts in their millions find their way into the East African Circle from Somalia and Ethiopia. The two countries have not had an infestation like this in a quarter century, an infestation that has resulted in massive farmland destruction and threatened an already vulnerable region with devastating hunger. A single swarm can contain up to 150 million locusts per square kilometer of farmland, with a small swarm capable of consuming enough food for 35,000 people in a single day. Hey. The livelihoods of thousands of already vulnerable people in East Africa were at stake, and for months a large part of the region was caught in a cycle with no end in sight as millions of locusts speedily became billions, biting away the leaves of both crops and the brush that sustains the livestock, so important to many families. When they invaded Kenya from Ethiopia and Somalia on December 28, 2019, the locusts were in their immature stage. They grew and matured, and one day after another, a total of 28 counties, including Mandera, Wajir, Marsabit, Garissa, Isiolo, Samburu and Meru counties are just but a few of the counties that are confirmed to have been plunged into the infestation. The crunch of young desert locusts began to be felt last year in the month of April amid the various predicaments of 2020, including the COVID-19 pandemic. The yellow locusts cover the ground and tree trunks like a twitching carpet, sometimes drifting over the dust like giant grains of sand. Livestock competed for pasture with hungry hoppers, a matter of survival for the fittest, a problem that worried pastoralists that there would be insufficient pasture for their livestock as the dry season approached. And not only were the effects severe for livestock, but also 15 to 20% of sorghum in Turkana County was damaged.
Ikiwa nzige zitapotea na maybe Mungu atuhurumie atupatie mvua hata kiasi, hali pengine inaweza rejea kabla ya wanyama hawajaangamia. Lakini ikiwa tutapata zaidi ya mwezi mmoja bila mvua na nzige imemaliza hii nyasi ambazo ziko, najua bila shaka maisha ya wanyama itaanza kudhoofika na wataanza kufa kwa njaa na magonjwa.
This prompted massive efforts, both aerial and ground operations, to control and contain a second generation of locusts, either at hopper or at swarm stage. On top of that, the Food and Agriculture Organization FAO trained hundreds of National Youth Service volunteers as part of its action plan to boost the government's surveillance and control of the destructive insects. Fortunately, by May, the government was able to gradually reduce the invasion in the country from the 28 affected counties to 16 counties. In the month of June, it narrowed down from 16 to 7 counties, and in a span of 2 months, July and August, locusts were successfully contained in 4 counties: Samburu, Turkana, Isiolo and Marsabit. And by September, the country was desert locust free.
And by July, we were battling desert locusts in only 4 counties of Samburu, Turkana, Marsabit and Isiolo. A month later, that is August 2020, we were largely successful in the same counties, and by September 2020, our country was desert locust free.
However, with the short-term locust containment, it has been projected that massive breeding is still ongoing in the neighboring Ethiopia and Somalia countries, an issue that may result in a second wave of locust invasion.
The invasion in Ethiopia and Somalia has not been contained, and a lot of breeding has been going on in these neighboring countries. Because of this, it was earlier projected that when the southerly winds start in December 2020, then we may experience a second wave of invasion.
This fear was recently confirmed by the government spokesperson Cyrus Oguna when he revealed that the second wave of desert locusts invading 9 counties has originated from the neighboring countries, affecting counties of Mandera, Garissa, Wajir, Marsabit, Kitui, Lamu, Taita Taveta, Kilifi and Tana River.
We are experiencing a second wave of locust invasion that has attacked the country from May this year. Now, this second wave of locust invasion, again, like the first one, came from neighboring countries, and you're all aware about the situation in our neighboring countries, which indeed is proving to be a problem in as far as containing these locusts are concerned.
Despite the panic, the government has assured Kenyans that all is under control and that the country is equipped to avert a possible hunger crisis should the locusts continue to ravage thousands of hectares of crops.
We have sufficient amount of pesticide, and already 200,000 liters have been delivered to respective control bases. We also have a stock of about almost 500,000 liters of assorted pesticides.
Of course, we have also equipment, vehicles that we earned. We are hiring more aircrafts. We have our transportation ready. We have controlled, scouts that were trained, whom we have planning now to retrain and remobilize. So we want to assure the country that there is nothing to really panic about.
The fight to see the deadly infestation of these migratory insects come to a complete halt in Kenya and its neighboring countries has been said to be a combined effort, as the success of one of the affected countries is dependent on the success of its neighbor.
You may do very well as a country, but locusts are migratory animals. They don't know boundaries. They fly across. And therefore, your success depends on also the success of your neighbor. So if your neighbor is not very successful in controlling, then you are not safe, irrespective of what you do.
Despite the efforts that have been gained over the fight against the ravenous locusts, FAO has raised an alarm over threats of possible drought that will call for careful monitoring and response capacity across the region to be ready for when a worse invasion occurs. Tanok Lauren, TV47.
Thank you, Nanok Lauren, for that report on the deadly desert locusts. You're watching your channel of choice, the County's Television. Time for us to take another short break. We'll be back with more after this break. Don't go too far.
So we have a problem in the country. Our choices must be based on the policies. Sera ambazo mtu anataka kuweka mbele ni nini?
Kuongezwa kwa nyadhifa kutasuluhisha matatizo ambayo yanalikumba taifa kwa sasa.
BBI hawezi kuwa alfa na omega. Tukilinda pesa zetu vizuri, tuzibe mambo ya ufisadi na nini, watu na uchumi waanze kufufuka na watu waanze kuajiriwa na kadhalika, mambo ya kuwa na leader of opposition ama kuwa na prime minister watu hatazungumzia sana. So we have a problem in the country. Our choices must be based on the policies. Sera ambazo mtu anataka kuweka mbele ni nini?
Kuongezwa kwa nyadhifa kutasuluhisha matatizo ambayo yanalikumba taifa kwa sasa.
BBI hawezi kuwa alfa na omega. Tukilinda pesa zetu vizuri, tuzibe mambo ya ufisadi na nini, watu na uchumi waanze kufufuka na watu waanze kuajiriwa na kadhalika, mambo ya kuwa na leader of opposition ama kuwa na prime minister watu hatazungumzia sana. So we have a problem in the country. Our choices must be based on the policies. Sera ambazo mtu anataka kuweka mbele ni nini?
Kuongezwa kwa nyadhifa kutasuluhisha matatizo ambayo yanalikumba taifa kwa sasa.
BBI hawezi kuwa alfa na omega. Tukilinda pesa zetu vizuri, tuzibe mambo ya ufisadi na nini, watu na uchumi waanze kufufuka na watu waanze kuajiriwa na kadhalika, mambo ya kuwa na leader of opposition ama kuwa na prime minister watu hatazungumzia sana. So we have a problem in the country. Our choices must be based on the policies. Sera ambazo mtu anataka kuweka mbele ni nini?
Kuongezwa kwa nyadhifa kutasuluhisha matatizo ambayo yanalikumba taifa kwa sasa.
BBI hawezi kuwa alfa na omega. Tukilinda pesa zetu vizuri, tuzibe mambo ya ufisadi na nini, watu na uchumi waanze kufufuka na watu waanze kuajiriwa na kadhalika, mambo ya kuwa na leader of opposition ama kuwa na prime minister watu hatazungumzia sana. So we have a problem in the country. Our choices must be based on the policies. Sera ambazo mtu anataka kuweka mbele ni nini?
Kuongezwa kwa nyadhifa kutasuluhisha matatizo ambayo yanalikumba taifa kwa sasa.
BBI hawezi kuwa alfa na omega. Tukilinda pesa zetu vizuri, tuzibe mambo ya ufisadi na nini, watu na uchumi.
Happy holidays.
Welcome back. It is Friday and a new year it is. Tonight let's talk to the married couples. Linda Alela talked to a couple, Pastor Julius and Dr. Jane Kimani, on how to rekindle love, especially in marriage. Is it possible to maintain love in marriage for years in this day and age? Let's listen into that discussion.
Welcome back to the broadcast. Let's now get to the easy discussion. And when I say easy, it is easy and important. Important because it revolves around our day-to-day lives, especially for the married partners, or better yet, well, couples, so to speak. Because imagine you've been with this person for, first of all, note that this person came from a different world, you came from a different world, you meet at this point, and you've been with them at this point. There's so much love, it's all bubbly, it's all rosy, it's all sweet. Then 1 year down the line, 2 years down the line, well, the fire goes down. Just how do you get to rekindle it? How do you get to keep it burning? It is an interesting conversation. That's why you see me smile, because it is possible. In most cases, you will opt for divorce. In most cases, you want to go your way. But actually, when you go to the other side, the grass is not greener. So we'll have a conversation that will help us, just keeping us going in that relationship and, loving each other every other day. Jovial moments at home. That is not to mean that is, there's going to be absence of troubles and ups and downs. And guess what? The guests of the day, I don't know whether it's right to say is a couple or are a couple. I will want to call them doctors. Doctors, yes. Doctors Julius and Jane Kimani. So what keeps the fire burning?
Number one, hakuna kuzoeana. Men will go outside there, and you know the Kampango knows my friend how to become a friend. Starting thing, they look for, you know, they take time.
Yes.
Never be cheated by anyone.
Okay.
Ati Kampango aliingia tu, ati walikutana tu. She took her time. She did due diligence.
Okay.
She wanted to know, what does this man like? What are his interests? What is his career?
Yeah.
So perhaps listens or just interacted on Facebook or whatever others fear and realize this man loves perhaps a certain type of a car or loves farming or loves this or the other. What does she do? She will Google and learn.
Research.
When they're talking, she is on point.
Wow.
I think it's also a mentality.
Okay.
Linda, I think all the ladies enter into a relationship with a mentality that men are cheaters. But you see one thing, if you hear a woman who is always thinking you will cheat, you're planting a seed into the mind. Because everything starts from the mind level.
Yeah.
But the moment you begin to show the dude that you respect him, and you know it's like the way if you tell a child that I know you'll perform well.
Yes.
You release an expectation. You also put a challenge.
Okay.
So that's the same thing.
Now
you marry a guy and you say, mi wanaume usijaribu kucheat kama vile wengine wana cheat.
Okay.
No, already you have already created, maybe the guy was not even thinking, but you have already created like an idea that there could be a possibility.
Right.
I can do this thing.
Okay. So at that time, we are always told that men can really lie. You know, they can really put their card, the worst card down there until you get inside the box, or so to speak.
Now now you see.
She said we are told.
There are terrible moments in the family. There are terrible moments within, the relationship. You cannot lie to me, Jane, that you will still be that Linda, that you will still say, you know what, let's go out, baby. Let's do this and all that.
It is true that most people marry and then they realize she, even her, is not the girl she used to act to be. She was very coy. Alikuwa ni paka ameficha kucha. Kuingia kwa ndoa sasa zimetolewa. And you're wondering, who is this? Who talks like this? Who replies like this? Is this a girl I married? Or is this the man I knew?
Yeah.
So what do we do? Number one, I tell girls who are not married, take your time before you get married. Get to know this person.
Okay.
Date for a longer time.
How long is long?
As long as we feel confident that I know his strengths and weaknesses.
Wow.
The reason why they need helpmate is because they need somebody to work on. The reason why we stay in that marriage is because we are not perfect.
Yeah.
It's very important to realize none of us is perfect.
You can edit this person. You change this person to a different thing.
You can chisel it to what you want it to become.
Oh, yeah?
You can chisel it to become a monument of great value.
Okay.
You can put it in the fire. It's what you choose to do. But for a relationship to work, it takes time, and it takes patience, and it takes possibility mentality.
So in this process of changing this person, in this process of making this person the best for you, is it a little bit unfair? And I mean, can you go to a level where you'll now change them to a totally different person that is not them?
Do you know what happens? Yes. I think the greatest change that can begin to change the other person is changing you.
Yourself.
Now become the best that you can be. You know, there are people who make a decision. Neskia, I will show him dust. So you have already decided.
Yes.
Ataona vumbi.
Yes.
So and you know, the any time you're showing somebody dust, you'll also be in the dust.
Yes.
So, but if you decide that I will be the best person,
Okay.
if I have anger issues, let me work on my anger. Because if you can control a conversation and you don't get angry in that conversation, you will find somehow somebody will begin to fit in that mold. For example, it takes two to fight. If somebody gets into the ring and begins to throw punches and you refuse to get into the ring, the fight will not occur.
Okay.
So if you as a lady, you have noticed that your guy has got anger problems and you also have got anger problems, now begin by changing. You don't lose your identity. Change you and say, I'm going to relax. Next time when we have an argument, I will not get into the ring.
Okay.
I'll wait until he comes down. I get him out of the ring. Then we sit at the side of the ring. Then we have a conversation. So the greatest way to begin to change a person is by changing you.
Dr. Jane speaks of a scenario where take time to learn this person, court this person for a while before you agree that this is a person. But I don't know whether this is a cliche or a myth that you're always told you do not get to know your spouse. Years down the line, you're with them, you learn something new every other day. So in this case, within this short period of courting them, or 2-3, you know, of courtship, are you really able to pick things that will be helpful?
You know, we are created by our Maker in such a way that we have got what we call the sixth sense, where you can be able to see a character. You know, if you stick with somebody for 6 months, they may lie, but on the 8th month, 9th month, they can't keep on lying.
Okay.
Because you begin to see some trends that are not okay. If somebody is maybe an angry person, and suddenly you can see them clenching their hands and suddenly they want to hit you, then you will know that this person, if he's attempting to hit you before he's married you, or this lady is attempting to claw you before you marry her, then when it comes to marriage, you have actually given her the license to scratch you properly.
All right.
You have given the man the license to hit you properly. So that's why we say dating is a period where you scrutinize, and we say ask relevant questions.
Okay.
Don't go just for coffee dates and for dinners and you're just laughing over there. Ask the hard questions.
Can I add something to that? Observe the way he or she treats the people around them. We keep saying, observe the way this man treats the mother and the sisters.
Okay.
Because that's exactly how he'll treat you. How he talks about women is a reflection of how he'll treat you.
Okay.
Listen to him. Observe how the lady talks to the watchman or the gatekeeper. The way he talks to him is the way he'll treat you. She'll treat you if she gets a better job than you one day.
How are you able to detect that this is a lie? How are you able to sit down and say this is a lie that needs to be addressed?
You see, I've seen so many people, especially couples, you discover your wife is cheating on phone, you discover your guy is cheating on phone, and then you kinda want, you know, we also have entertained lies. We want to hear a lie. You're like, I don't want to believe this is true. So you ask the guy, what is this chick? Why were you writing to this chick that you meet? And the guy lies to you and says it's a job thing. And you could have seen the string. And you want to, because you want to end the fight.
Lies are comforting.
They're
really
comforting. So you suddenly, what have you done? You have actually given a big reward to that liar.
Okay.
And what are you saying? Lie again to me.
It is okay.
So when we keep on rewarding lies, you will keep on getting the lies.
Okay. Rekindling the love can sometimes, I don't know whether it's expensive. You will tell us whether it's an expensive affair. It requires so much energy and so much devotion to that. And so much, you know, that aspect of compromise. Over years, things will change. Babies will come. Challenges will be there. Maybe you started on a very good foot and then you get to a point where times are tough. How do you navigate or maneuver through this, still keep the fire burning without having to be extra, without having to strain yourself, without having to overlook the other important things like, you know, the human beings that have just come courtesy of the blessings of this marriage?
Many times when children come, the men tend to complain, and of course they tend to get very jealous. Because even for them, they have had it said, just the way they say that we get into marriage with a notion, there is a notion that when a baby comes, the woman loses interest in the man.
Yes.
And yes, 50-50, but the reason why is because, you know, of course, the small baby needs your attention. I always tell couples, give the attention both of you.
Wow.
Give the attention both
of you to the baby or
to the baby, but for the two of you, there's a priority and the hierarchy of need for every person. Number one, we keep saying it's your maker. Number two, it's to your spouse. Number three, I'll get up to number three. Number three is to your family. This is the children. So what happens? Always create time for special moments for the number two. Before you create time for the special moment for number three. And as they grow, the number three will always know daddy or mommy is the first priority ahead of us. Yeah, because we keep saying one day they'll leave the home. We'll be left the two of us. So if you are lost, because at times you can be in a marriage, but you're lost. You're just lost. You don't know where you're going, coming from. You're bringing up babies. Then Form 2, then Form 3. Suddenly they go, and you're left with a stranger in the house.
When you put priority to resources. Resources cannot love you back.
Yeah.
You'll find you can sit in that car and you put the radio on and you're blasting, but the car will not hold you. The car will not tell you sorry if you're going through a challenging moment.
Okay.
That plot that you have built will never come and hug you. You'll only stand outside and maybe the guys will pay rent to you. And the people you pay rent to will never come and hug you and do all those things. So we usually say, when you met because you liked each other.
Yeah.
Probably you loved holding hands. And that is what makes life interesting, the process of being human. And so we say, yes, it is important to put your priorities right and have resources, because resources make a relationship better.
Okay.
It is easier to be happier when you have some money than when you don't have.
I agree.
But sometimes, unfortunately, that is where you find people who thought about resources so much are the people who rise up maybe from poverty, and later you realize, wakati hatukuwa na pesa, we were happier. Why? Because the people are after resources. They came together as partners to make money.
Okay.
You know, the people who come together, and they come together because they think probably money will make their relationship better. And as I said, money is good. Because when you have money, you're able to do more things, you're able to express your love through money.
Yes.
But you should never let the money be the one that you're trying to use to love you. Because there are people who, if you buy a car and you are hurting, it will not go and comfort you.
Yeah.
If you have that property, that house that you built and you're getting rent, yes, you may be comfortable, but it will never come down and bow down and hug you.
Yeah.
It is about the small things that you do to each other, because the reason you got married is because of the emotional part.
The language of love
Yes.
is probably different for different people.
True.
And sometimes that language of love, you know, you just want to share it with that one person that you love. And sometimes when you fail on that, you do not want this going out to the other party. Third party is also another problem in most cases. You're told, do not just get them in so much. So how do you do this with balance?
Especially talking about third party, we've got now the first immediate is the in-laws. The in-laws can be a blessing or they can be like a pain.
Yeah.
So it is the other spouse to determine how they perceive you, number one, right from day one. And it's the other spouse to protect you from their arrows. Because at times they may throw mishale. So it's just the other spouse to protect you.
Yeah.
And there's some that are perfectly perfect, but you've got also to be careful on the amount of information that gets to leak to them. Let them not be the decision makers of the kind of a plot you're going to buy. Because we've got people who say, oh no, my dad or my mom said we should build in Rwai, we should build in Gong, we should build. No, they should not be decision makers. At the same token, let not your friends be involved and roped in making of decisions. Limit the amount of information that goes to them.
At what point do you know that this relationship needs some level of rejuvenation?
True. You know, you find one key indicator of something that needs to be done. You no longer have conversations.
Yeah.
You find a lot of couples, when they begin, they talk about themselves. You look nice, I look good, I would want to take you out. But along the path of life, you find now, instead of having conversations that are about you, you begin to talk about others. Every time what is bonding you is not actually you two, but the conversations you have about others. That is one indicator that you actually going apart.
How do you rekindle that romance, you know, that moment? I mean, this is very common.
Yeah.
In most cases, actually, everything else could be in existence, but that one is not well.
I'll say number one, it starts with, it's both of you, but I want to talk to the woman because a man can easily get enticed by any woman, even on a magazine.
Yes.
Just passes by and sees a magazine with a half-naked woman, and we pretend to return back and check at the newspaper. The eyes are on this woman. This is an inanimate being. So I tell women, number one, keep yourself looking hot.
Okay.
You've got to.
No.
That one is not a choice.
Yes.
Because yes, because most women get married, they become Bibi Wakwetu. No, those names are not your names. Keep, number one, love yourself. Love yourself and keep yourself looking good, attractive to the eye. He married you because he was attracted to what he saw.
Okay. He had nothing to do with your behavior first or anything.
The first thing, he didn't even know whether you have come from prison or whether you have come from church.
Okay.
He just didn't know. But he was attracted by what he saw. He later got to learn where you had come from after. So you've got to keep the attraction going.
Okay.
And that's something every woman has to work towards. Make your room exciting. The same bed sheet, my friend. Aish, the same curtain. All it takes is just to change the bed sheets and the curtain.
Yeah.
And I will say this to a woman friend: buy a lingerie. You know, I know it's cold. The cold season is coming in.
Yeah.
I know we don't like feeling cold. So we've got those warm trousers that are sold by hookers all over this country in t-shirts, and some of them written everything. So, no, at least, you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah. Just keep them for later on in the day when you're washing clothes.
Okay.
Finally, remove your grandfather's photos from the wall. Some bedrooms have got the grandfather, the president, and
or
the
even no
pastor's
photos
photo.
at all.
And the pastors, those three, the grandfather, the president, and the pastor on the wall, because you know, you like, no. Remove them, because that man will be looking there and thinking, the grandfather is watching. You know, so just make the place, the ambience of the place look good. Finally, smell good. Smell good. Yeah, it's not expensive to smell good. And keep the hygiene. And I want to tell the man, let them shower.
What are you
You're not
supposed to
telling
do?
me?
No, it's not you. But, you know, most men will come from work tired, whether I'm Django or whether from the office, smell good, brush your teeth. Most of them complain, my wife does not kiss me. Brush your teeth, that's the reason.
That's the reason.
Yeah, simple. You know, it is just that you don't brush your teeth before you go to bed. Yes.
All right.
And if you need to chew mint, do.
All right, Dr. Wind it up for us on that aspect of intercourse. I mean, sometimes we beat ourselves so much as women. It's always about what we do. So as men, to top up to what it is Dr. Jane speaks about, what needs to be done? I mean, sometimes these languages, you know, you don't just wake up and you tell me,
hello.
This is it.
You know, I usually say sometimes that you know, most men will go and start their car and watch it warm up.
Yes.
And wipe it as they are getting ready to move out. I think that is a complaint that we've gotten so many times.
Yes.
That women are not just, they don't want to be, it's not like a bicycle. You know, a bicycle is the only one that you get on top and you move. But you need to take time and warm her up with a conversation, with a gift. It may not be so expensive, but have that conversation with her.
Okay.
But also, I will say this to all the ladies. Sometimes men chase too much. You're chasing your wife from morning to evening and she doesn't agree to be caught. So that can also discourage. So sometimes itikia kushikwa, si kila wakati ni kuhepa.
All right, incredible. Thank you so much. And I always say this, we can talk about until the cows come home. But all the same, on that note, I mean, haven't we learned?
We have learned.
We have indeed. And we keep having these conversations. Thank you so much, Dr. Jane Kimani and Dr. Julius Kimani, sorry.
Thank you.
And that's where we get to wind up this conversation. And equally, thank you back at home for keeping me company right from the word go and up until now, and always trusting us to be your sole source of news. It was good having you. My name is Linda Alela. Do have yourself a lovely, lovely evening ahead. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda Alela, for that much needed discussion on love. And as they say, if love